and welcome to my channel. My name is Alyssa Joelle and this is Alyssa Joelle's Library. If you click on this video, it is probably because you saw the title and the crazy number of books I managed to read somehow miraculously in the last 6 months. So it is all true. It is not just clickbait. I read over 250 books within the last 6 months. So super exciting. I kind of have like this personal challenge on the go for a number of different things that really just got me back into reading, and I just absorb books, I guess. I do read a book typically a day, and I do have one that goes throughout the whole week pretty much because I like to have a consistent one. So this video is not really about how I managed to read 250 plus books in 6 months, but if you are interested in that, let me know, and that could possibly be a video. But this is basically my mid-year freakout where I answer some of the questions and go over some statistics. So my phone died and it's currently charging, but I did manage to write down some of the stats from, I forget what it's called, Storyline, I think. I'll link it right there. But basically it took all my books from Goodreads and like put into this other app and made all the fun statistics. I do think the statistics are wrong a little bit because I think I have more audiobooks than what it actually said. And I also noticed that like 0.08% of my books were German, which makes no sense because I didn't read any German. So I think it's slightly off. I did go through some of it and it seemed to be in check. I don't know where it went wrong, but anyway, so further ado, I read a total of 257 books from January to the end of June. It ended up being 78,080 pages, which seems so crazy. Honestly, I feel like it's because they didn't update the audiobooks properly. I do think it's a little bit lower than that, but for pages, I have 46% of the books that I read were 300 pages or less, and then 48% of the books were between 300 and 500 pages, with 6% being 500 pages plus, which ends up being 15 books that were over 500 pages. For the pace of the books, because I found this really interesting and it might kind of like, I guess, justify like my fast reading, 30% of the books that I read are fast-paced books. So 70% of the books are like already bingeable books. If you're not a fast reader anyways, they would be fast reads. And then 57% of the books were medium reads, and then 13% of the books were slow reads. And I'm pretty confident I can name all 13 of the books that were slower reads because I tend to read the slower reads throughout the week, or maybe have them even throughout a month, and just kind of picking a wag at it from here and there. But like in the morning or the afternoon, I will binge read a different book, and that's kind of one of the ways of how I managed to read so much. Anyways, moving on to my top moods, and this is honestly why I wanted to get this stat so bad, because I was so nosy about what kind of mood reader I am. I know a lot of people are mood readers, and I don't think I am one. I think I just kind of take the challenge for physical TBRs, and if I buy a lot of books, I just want to sit down and read them all. So mood reading is just really interesting and intriguing for me. I have my top 5 listed down. So emotional is number 1, which checks out because some of the books I read were really deep. I cried during a few of them. The second one is reflective, which I thought was really interesting, and I really couldn't name a whole lot of books that I would count as reflective ones, but you know, maybe it is. Then we have number 3, lighthearted, which is true because if I were to say I'm a mood reader in anything, it would be because I read something, I don't know, harder to read, harder to kind of swallow. And by that I mean like the tragedy stories, the real nonfiction stories, the stuff that's so emotional and so raw and so true that it's just is hard to read. And sometimes after that I do like reading something lighthearted. So if I was a mood reader in any kind of way, that's how I would be. The fourth is funny. And there are a few books that I have read that are more on the humorous side, but I wouldn't say that they are solely humorous. And I know that Hyperbole and a Half and Solutions and Other Problems are books that I read for the humor in them. I read them before, but they are rereads that I read one day when I was sick. And honestly, they're the best books to reread. And there was a few others, so I can see funny. And number 5 is adventurous, and I kind of think that this is coming from the fantasy books I read, I think. I don't really know what I would classify as an adventurous book. I never know how to classify Bullet Train. So I was like wondering if that would be an adventurous book. I know it's like a mystery kind of. Anyways, moving on to my top genre. So the highest genre that I read this year is romance, which really checks out because I love romance. I love romance and fantasy. I love romance and like young adult literature. I love rom-coms and all that stuff. So that definitely checks out. I did read the whole Bridgerton series, which will come up a little bit later in this video. And I did read the whole Selection series as well. And I was introduced to a few new romance authors this year, like Lucy Score, I absolutely love her, and Sarah Adams as well. So romance definitely is my number 1. My second is young adult, which makes so much sense considering I read young adult books because I'm always trying to find different books I can potentially bring into a high school classroom and share with my students, or I'm always getting recommendations from other high school teachers that typically read a lot of young adult. So that does check out. Plus, I think that young adult literature honestly is really fun. I guess they are the lighthearted side. They're easy reads, they're faster paced, and I just find I like the characters a lot more. In some general fiction books, I find that sometimes there's just too much happening with characters, and young adult is like, even if they do something stupid or dumb, you're like, it's okay because they're a kid. But if that happens in a general fiction book and it's an adult and they're being stupid, I'm like, get over yourself. I don't like it. So it's probably why. Which is funny because number 3 is contemporary. And contemporary to me is general fiction. I do know that some people have a slightly different definition of what contemporary is, but for me, I would say everything I classify as contemporary, I would also classify as general fiction, at least for like my bookshelves. But contemporary, I don't think, personally, I don't feel like it is my 3rd top genre. I thought it was fantasy, but when I was looking at it, it seemed like they didn't count dystopian to be under fantasy, and they didn't count Greek mythology or Norse mythology to be under fantasy. So, and I count all those, so I personally think that if it was changed around, fantasy would actually be my 3rd and not contemporary, but it is what it is. Before I jump into the questions for the mid-year freakout, I want to just highlight some of my top books from each of my top genres. So I would say for romance, it would definitely be Lucy Score's duology. I always forget the name of the trilogy. I always forget. But they're called Things We Never Got Over and Things We Hide. What's it called? Things We Hide from the Light? Yes, that sounds right. Those are small town romances with a little bit of spice. There's some really good character development, background, subplot, and those kind of elements just really drive it home for me for a romance novel. So generally love her. I really liked Love, Chai, and Other Four-Letter Words. That one was an unexpected, really good read. But for young adult, I would say Black Girl Unlimited was one of my favorite books that I got to read this year. I just adored it. I loved the magic realism, the memoir portion. I just think that it's a book that someone that is either a teenager or in their 20s, like, they would really just respect and understand literature on a different level if they read that one. It's one of the books where, I don't know, maybe you should just read it once in your lifetime. I just love it. I love The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. She is such a good author. I was introduced to her actually this year. I devoured 3 of her books. They're amazing. This one's my favorite. Some people like Everything a little bit more. She also wrote instructions for dancing, and I just think they're really good. Another one would be definitely The In-Between. This book blew my mind. I watched the movie with my friend, and then I was like, I have to get the book right now. Like, this should be a book. And it was a book. I was so happy. It was amazing. It's incredible. The basically premise of it is, at the very start, this girl loses her boyfriend, and she's trying her hardest to get back to him, to get in touch with him. There's a little bit of a kind of like a struggle of him being at peace and not being stuck into this in-between kind of thing before he goes to the afterlife. And then there's a struggle with her letting him go and still trying to be in contact with him and reach him. And it's just super powerful. It deals with a lot of grief and mental health, but honestly, it was the first book I ever annotated because I just loved it so much. So that's really good. There's also other ones too, like You've Reached Sam, for example, The Magic Strings of Frankie Presto. But you know, I'm gonna stop there because I'm gonna be going on and on and on and on. I read so much young adults books and so many good books, which actually reminds me, I didn't bring up the one other stat that I promised I would, or I promised myself that I would, because I wrote it down, and it is my star ratings. I have 82 books so far this year that I have rated 5 stars. I have 98 books that I rated 4 stars, 57 books that I rated 3 stars, and then we get to like books that I hate giving authors low readings because I know that they put so much of themselves in books, their mind and soul and body and heart and sweat and tears and everything goes into books. And I just see so many authors trying so hard to have this beautiful creation of literature, and sometimes when it doesn't do as well, or I don't vibe with it, or I don't super like it, I always feel so bad for leaving a lower star rating. But that's just me personally, I guess. My 2-star ratings, I do have 15 books, and I do have 3 books with 1-star ratings. Don't ask me what they are because one of them is actually a hot take, but it did happen. It was a big decision for me. I was like, I had to mentally prepare myself to give such a low star, but it happened. Anyways, for my top books for contemporary or general fiction, I would say Ocean Voung. He wrote a book called On This Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous. It's basically, it's like poetry in a novel. It's gorgeous, it's amazing, it's deep, it's powerful. It just blows me away. Also, One Italian Summer. I love it so much. It's about a girl who loses her mom and goes to Italy, and basically somehow time travels back in time and gets to hang out with her mom when her mom was in Italy when she was like 30, and they just so happen to be the same age. And I don't know, it deals with grief in such a beautiful way, and it's really something. Those are really good reads. Definitely my top general fiction reads. Okay, moving on, because if I don't stop rambling, we'll never get through this video. Alright, so I have the questions written down in front of me. There are 5 that I'm going to go over. So, okay, let's go with favorite new author. So, I have been introduced to a lot of authors this year. So, we have Nicole Yoon, we have Alice Oseman. Honestly, I accidentally got into Alice Oseman, like total fluke. Nick and Charlie, the novella, was just randomly on this table by the checkout, and I was like, yeah, a cute short little novella, that would be like super nice to read because I had a couple thick books in my hand and I like to split it up. So I grabbed it and I didn't understand the characters. I didn't know what was happening. I kind of got like just dropped into Nick and Charlie's relationship, and I don't know, it was just so intriguing and so sweet that I was like, I need to know more. I need to know like what this book series is. And then I found the Heartstoppers, and then someone told me it was a TV show, which I loved, and then I just ended up reading all of her books, and they're so good. I definitely do have my favorites of hers and my least favorites, but honestly, I could talk so much about her that should just be its own thing, its own video, potentially later on. Mitch Albom is also a new author introduced to me. Frankie, The Magic Strings of Frankie Presto. So good. It's the best one that he wrote. And I know that people are out here reading Tuesdays with Morrie, and honestly, I personally adore Tuesdays with Morrie, but it's not his best book. You have to read The Magic Strings of Frankie Presto. I am not going to tell you what it's about. You just have to do it. Absolutely. Another author that I was introduced to, I definitely would say Julia Quinn. She was one of my top ones because she wrote the Bridgerton series, and I just devoured that. Lucy Score, that I already mentioned. Favorite authors. There was a lot, but if those are the ones that came off the top of my head, then those are clearly my favorite. Okay, then we have my biggest surprise. So I would definitely say a book that I read and ended up just loving would be Daughter of the Moon Goddess. I generally did not realize that I was going to love this book as much as I did. I just wanted like a different fantasy and just randomly picked this one up, devoured it. It just hit all my favorite tropes, so it was amazing. Also, Black Girl Unlimited was such a surprise. I got this book for literally $6. It was a discount book. I never have high hopes for those because I always have such bad luck and get the worst ones, but I started reading it and just fell in love within the first few chapters. Again, magic realism, memoir. It talks a lot about growing up, coming of age, what it means to be a woman, and there's just so many cultural aspects that it just spoke about in such a beautiful way. So many meaningful messages, so many powerful statements. I loved it. I annotated almost every single page. I loved it so much. It was so good. Alright, so the next one is what is the biggest disappointment? And I had a couple disappointed reads. So, Love and Gelato. It is a film. I haven't seen the film, but I kind of always wanted to read the books. I don't know why. And one day I was at Chapters and they never ever have all 3 of them in stock. And it was one of those things where I just felt like I had to buy all 3. So I bought all 3. And this is also part of a surprise. Love and Gelato was not a great book for me. I didn't love it, and I was really hoping I was going to. I thought the character was really annoying. Sorry, not sorry. But the third one, Love and Olives, is actually amazing and restored the whole series for me and restored the author. So that is kind of, I guess, the best thing when you have an author that you don't super love and then you read a different book by them and you're like, actually that was just that book and not that author. Alright, so the next question is newest fictional crush. So I don't typically get a lot of I guess book boyfriends or whatever they're called, crushes on characters, but generally Elliot from Love in Other Words, what's it called? I also have like a bad memory. Oh my gosh, where's my copy? Oh, right here. Okay, Love in Other Words. Elliot just lives in my head. Free rent, always. He's so sweet and so cute. This character says something when he was 10 years old that blew my mind. It was so mature, and every single action that he does, I'm just rooting for him. And the only thing that made me so mad was like Macy was mad with him, and I was like, stop being mad at Elliot. Like, I don't even know what he did at this point, but I was like, how dare you be mad at this man? Like, he did nothing wrong. And honestly, no spoilers, so I'm not gonna say what he ended up doing, but I still love him. He's amazing. Now we're moving on to, I guess, the top question. What are the best books that I have read in 2023? So, books I read in 2023 were so freaking good. It's hard to pick a lot. So for nonfiction, we're gonna go with We Were Dreamers. Such an amazing autobiography, such an amazing memoir. Loved it so much. Best nonfiction. I already went through the romance and the general fiction and the YA books, but I also would say that for graphic novels, Crumbs is amazing. I love it. I do think it's new. I think it's a new release this year or last year or something like that. So good if you are a graphic novel person. If you want to go with a dystopia book, I definitely would say Watership Down. That is actually a book about bunnies, but I thought was really neat and really cool, really well done. And for fantasy books, definitely would recommend Warbreaker and Daughter of the Moon Goddess. They were my top 2 fantasies of this year. And I think that's kind of it. For, I guess, the remaining 6 months, I would say my top anticipated books, I don't know if I'm gonna buy any more new ones because I do have a lot of my physical TBR, and I'm also moving in a month. So I think I'm gonna be using their library for the remaining of 2023 when I get there, but never say never. I don't know. I do have very bad habits of randomly going to chapters and buying all the books. So, things that I'm really excited to be reading, Blood Magic. I'm really excited to read that one. I picked up The Firekeeper's Daughter the other day. I'm really excited to read that one. For books that haven't been released yet that I know I'm going to break down and buy, it would definitely be the 4th book in Before the Coffee Gets Cold. I love those books so much, so I'm definitely going to get that one. And Heartstoppers 5, I believe she has a release date for November. I know that it was supposed to be this summer. It got postponed. Hopefully it doesn't get postponed again, but those are definitely ones that I'm really excited for. So that is my 2023 mid-year freakout. I know that I talked about probably 10 or 15 books, and that is not very many out of the 100 or 250 plus books. So if you are interested in knowing what more I read, different recommendations, very specific genres and niches and authors, I'll be making a little mini series to kind of highlight as many as I can. So definitely stay tuned for that. But thank you so much for watching. This video is actually kind of fun to do. So I'll be hopefully doing something very similar at the very end of the year. But let me know what you guys are most excited for reading these next 6 months, and what did you love so far in 2023. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful, beautiful day, and I'll see you guys in my next video.